Hi, this is Sharon, and this is a recording of some of my favorite books that you might have missed. I know that one of the biggest challenges, especially in youth collection development, is the backlist, and it's really hard to keep up with books. And I've been keeping um, this collection here of youth books since I don't even know how long. Um, Let's see if I can find out for you. I think since like 2007. Um, so anyway, it's a very long list. I have, almost 1,300 books on here. There's a lot of titles on here, and I'm just going to pick out a few of them that you might have missed over the course of, becoming a librarian or transitioning into youth services. I'll talk about mostly middle school and high school books in this one, because I have to admit that middle grade, I'm sorry, elementary level books are not my specialty, or weren't until I came to Vermont and started hanging out with the Canfield Fisher Committee. So most of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about is middle school and up. And I also have to confess that I have not read these books in a long time. And so I'm going to probably stumble through some of these for you. Um, but when you're doing some collection development, sometimes it's good to hear about the value of some of these older books, so that you can either read them and recommend them, kind of revitalize them, put them on display, or maybe pause before you weed them. Now, I'm a big weeder, so don't feel guilty if you weed things. Um, it depends on your community and what your kids really like. So first, I'm just going to show you some resources right here. Jennifer Johnson, my fantastic assistant, is working on the website. So if you go to libraries.vermont.gov, you click on services, and then you want to go to children and teen, either here or in the center, either one. And then look at the little logo she made. Probably the best place for you to go is the Youth Services Toolkit. She reorganized this for us. And so the place you want to go is Plan, and this is the reader's advisory and collection information. Here are all my videos for new books that have come out. And then these are my little cheat sheets to the Canfield Fisher Awards, my very biased opinions on those kinds of things. And then there our review sources, how to use Library Thing if you want to stock my reading. I have to admit, I have stopped cataloging things because my last day is actually July 29th. So once I start my PhD program, I'm not going to be cataloging books anymore. I'm very sorry. This resource here, Juvenile Series and Sequels, is a fantastic resource. It'll help you fill in those series, figure out what number it is, especially those terrible series. They don't have numbers on them. They're trying to kill us. There's some older things down here, some very old resources down here if you really are interested in, and then links to some other resources. So this is where you would find this, and I will put the link here. Another place that you might want to check out is under Learn. Here's a bunch of my recorded self-paced modules, and there's information on weeding, dumping Dewey, programming, all kinds of stuff. So this, and also I did a recent recording on We Need Diverse Books and why diversity in books is so important for kids. So some of these might be helpful to you as well. All right, that's enough of the spiel. So this is Library Thing. And it's open to the public. There's the URL right up there. My username is Sparkle Cookie. If you really want to know why, I'll tell you. Basically what I've done is I've sorted this. So you can sort things just by clicking on the top. So you can sort by date. There's the oldest book in my collection, Ribsy, and Catcher in the Rye. Blah, I hate Catcher in the Rye. I know. I'm going to get hate mail for that, but I'm sorry. And then the newest books here, 2016. And look, I've gotten a little lazy in my in, in my ratings. I'm very sorry. I'm a terrible person. And then my ratings here. I am a very, very tough reader. And if you develop a system like this, I highly recommend that you be tough as well. Because if you give away those 5 stars to just anybody, then you won't be able to give it to something that comes up that's even better. And some books just shine, and it doesn't really matter what metric you're using. It's your opinion. But this can help you a lot, whether you're using Goodreads or an Excel spreadsheet or library thing. These kinds of tools are really handy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go by oldest, okay, and then I'm going to go by rating. And that way I'll start with some of these older books that you might have missed in your travels. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Whirligig. This is an oldie but a goodie. I discovered this when I was my very first full-time teen library job. And oh, there's a new title, new cover. I love paperback covers. It's fantastic. All right, this book is a fantastic reluctant reader high school book. It's about drunk driving. It's about suicidal thoughts. It's about reconciliation, forgiveness. It's about all kinds of stuff. So I read this book. It's short. It's 144 pages, so you could hand it to anybody who doesn't like to read. If you get this nice one with the new cover, the new paperback cover, it won't even be embarrassing. This is a very advanced book, definitely for your high school kids. It's about a kid who he goes to a party and he's very depressed, and I think he's drinking too. And he's 17 and he swerves into oncoming traffic, partially because he's doesn't know what he's doing, but partially because he's feeling suicidal and he just kind of wants to see what happens. Unfortunately, he crashes into another car and the girl in the other car dies, which is horrendous for anybody, but especially for a teenager. So he ends up trying to repent for this, and what happens is that he goes to court, and this part, might be a little bit unbelievable, especially in this day and age, but um, the family of the girl who died decided that the best way for him to repent was to travel from one corner of the country to the other and to plant whirligigs in the honor of the girl who died, and have this kind of soul-searching adventure. And so he does. He goes to all over the country. Maybe it's all four corners of the country. I can't remember exactly. But he makes these whirligigs, which if you don't know what a whirligig is, you should Google it because it's very cool. And so he has to learn how to make them, and then he has to get a bus ticket and a backpack, and he travels on his own and he meets these really amazing people. And this story is a lot about forgiveness, a lot about self-forgiveness, repentance. It's a very dark topic, but it has a lot of hope in it. And in the end, he really starts to find himself. I mean, it's harsh, definitely not sugar-coated here, but really phenomenal book. Definitely stands the test of time. Another one that I would highly recommend that you check out is Stuck in Neutral. Um, this is a phenomenal book. It's a couple of years older, 2001. This is Terry Truman's gem. This book won the Prince Award, which, if you know anything about me, you know that I don't always agree with the Prince Awards, but this one, definitely amazing. It's another short book. It's 144 pages. Phenomenal story, nothing like you've ever read before in your life. This is a story about a young man, I think he's about 15 or 16, and he has cerebral palsy to the point where he can't move on his own. He can't speak, he can't feed himself, he can't move. So he's in a wheelchair and he's kind of in his own mental world. And he understands everything that's going on around him, and he has a very active mental life and world, but he can't communicate that with anybody else. He has this very protective older brother and parents who are just worried about him. And the most interesting part about this is that he has seizures, and these seizures are actually he loves them. He feels free when he has seizures, which, is kind of an odd way to describe it. But Terry Truman actually had a son with a similar disorder. And so he really drew on his own experience as a father, watching his son and really struggling with the idea of, is his son suffering? And this father just thinks his son is in terrible pain and just doesn't know. But in reality, because this story is told from Sean's point of view, from the boy who's paralyzed, he's kind of stuck in his body, but he's pretty happy. He has a decent life. But his father doesn't know that, and so his father is thinking about euthanizing him, which is just crazy scary. And this is a really good discussion book. This is the kind of book that there is nothing else like it. I think Sharon Draper's tried to write a book similar to this, Out of My Mind, and I don't think she was as successful, even though I love Sharon Draper. This book really is one of a kind. It's short, it's impactful. I think that anyone, middle school, high school, would really, really enjoy this. Plus, it's a short paperback, so it's pretty cheap. So I highly recommend that you either grab that one or hold on to it. All right, Bad Boy, another one. Bad Boy is a memoir of Walter D. Myers, and he passed away recently, which was devastating for those of us who adore his writing, and I am definitely one of them. It was just heartbreaking, but this is his memoir, his biography, basically, of growing up in Harlem in the 50s. And it was a tough time. He did not live a privileged life. And I think that kids are really riveted by the fact that he lived this very kind of tragic life, and yet he grew up to be a world famous author. It's a really, really wonderful book. I think that it's also short. I don't know why I started with all these short ones. 224 pages, so pretty short. And kids who like his other books are just going to love this. Monster, of course, is one of his just wonderful, wonderful books that crown in his writing. And so this book takes place in Harlem. It's probably, especially for kids in Vermont, a very foreign place. And Harlem in the 50s is very different than Harlem today. And I think that kids are going to understand the bullying. They're going to understand, hopefully, the need to read and the need to be at the library. Walter D. Myers is one of those authors who talks about the library saving his life. So you should definitely read it as well. Wonderful, wonderful story, and I think it will really capture your kids' imaginations. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, how about Flipped? Wendolyn Van Drainen is fantastic. She won the Dorothy Canfield Fisher Award for Running Dream, which is one of my all-time favorite books. But this is one of her quieter books, and I think that it's worth looking at. It's a little bit older now. I think how old is it? 2003. So yeah, it's a little on the older side. But it's told in two perspectives. So it's kind of a romantic comedy where, you have the story told by the boy, the story told by the girl, and they kind of miss each other. And, they both like each other, but they never can really communicate that. But I think the real gem of this book is the other characters, and they spend a lot of time in a retirement home. And I'm a sucker for grandparent stories, so you got to know that in advance. But their relationship with the grandparents and the people in the retirement home is unbelievably adorable. It's just a sweet, sweet book. It's another short one. I think they made a movie. They must have made a movie out of it. I haven't seen it. 256 pages, it's not super long, definitely middle school kind of book. And I think it could appeal to your younger kids who might want to read The Running Dream, but aren't quite ready for it. All right, here's another one, A Great and Terrible Beauty. This is one that it was so hot when it first came out, and then it kind of fell by the wayside, and I've seen it um, on a lot of, donation bins, which is fine. These things go out of vogue, but if you have it, you might want to read it and or I'm just looking to see the publication date, 2003, and or recommend it to kids who like either boarding school mysteries or they like kind of these fantastical mysteries. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fantasy fan, but there's something about this kind of fantasy that I really, really love. I think this whole series, it's a trilogy, is really, really wonderful. So this is a story about a girl named Gemma, and her mother commits suicide. So she's shipped off to this place in England, and it's a boarding school. It's kind of a Hogwarts-esque boarding school with a lot of secret passages and snotty kids. And she is been followed by this mysterious man all the way from India, and she's not really sure what's going on. She starts hanging out with these other girls at Spence, and they're kind of a secret society, and they have like a connection to a spiritual world beyond the school. And they start experimenting with this. And, with these wonderful gifts, of course, come prices. And so some of it backfires and there's a lot of scary stuff, but there's also this kind of romance in it. And also the idea, the romance of being able to escape your reality and go somewhere beautiful. But there's some tragedy that happens, and in the trilogy, and I can't really remember where one starts and one ends, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. But some people get hurt, and there's a lot of infighting, and talk about, sealing up the access. Is it good for us? I'm not sure. It's a really, really great story. It's very well written. It's in the Victorian style, so it's very detailed. So if you have kids who like these kind of boarding school dramas, this one might be a good one. It's a thick, thick book. It's 432 pages. It's also really wonderful in audio if you can get your hands on it. But that's a trilogy you should definitely look into. Here's another one of my favorite trilogies, the Bartimaeus trilogy. So this one, I used to book talk in the middle school by reading the first, I think it was the first page. No, it was the first page of like the second chapter or something. This is an awesome book. I was handed this book a long time ago by a librarian who I was just starting to get interested in children's literature. And I read Harry Potter, of course, in like a week. And I said, what do I read next? And she said, here, read this. And I said, all right. So I picked it up. And oh my goodness, it is so good. And it is phenomenal on audio. Phenomenal. It is a story of a magician's apprentice. He's 11, I think, and he thinks he can do anything he wants. And so he summons this demon named Bartimaeus, who is one of the most powerful demons. And he gets a little too big for his britches, and Bartimaeus gets out. And it's funny because it alternates perspective. So every other chapter is told from the kid's point of view, Nathaniel, and every other chapter is told from Bartimaeus' point of view. So you get the bad guy point of view. And so the bad guy is like trying to scare the pajamas off this little kid so that he can get out and wreak havoc in the world, and the kid is trying to keep him in so he can do his bidding, and Bartimaeus is laughing at him. Oh, it's great stuff. They go on adventures. This one's a trilogy as well, and then there's a prequel. I highly recommend it for your fantasy fans, especially those boys who love those thick adventure stories like Pendragon and Gregor the Overlander. This is going to hit the spot. Definitely hang on to this one. It's an older book. It's in paperback. It's going to be cheap. You can probably pick it up at a used bookstore if you want. Highly, highly recommend that one as well. Let's see what else here. I don't want to talk about all of them. I just want to talk about some of the ones that that you might have forgotten about, or you might not have ever learned about. Oh, how about a mango shaped space? This is another one of my favorite stories. It's a tearjerker. Um, I always warn people about tearjerkers. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to spoil something for you, so close your ears if you hate spoilers. The cat dies in this book. I'm very, very sorry to say. And that's the part that kills me the most. But so Wendy Mass is one of my all-time favorite authors. She's phenomenal. She wrote Jeremy Fink, which is another one of my favorite books, and Every Soul a Star, another one of my favorite books. Anything by Wendy Mass is awesome, but this one was one of her first breakout novels, and it's really, really amazing. It's about a girl named Mia who has synesthesia, which means that she can see sounds, and numbers are to her are in colors. And so the world is very colorful to her. And of course, when you are in elementary school or middle school, when you have something different about you, you're considered to be a freak. And so she's bullied pretty badly. And so she's very isolated. And so her best friend is her cat named Mango. And Mango is actually, I think, gray. The reason that Mango is named Mango is because the little purr sounds that Mango makes look like little mango colored puffs of smoke to Mia, which is just adorable. And so the cat does die, and she finds an online community to really support her. And it's really an amazing story. I think any kid is going to love the idea of an outcast. Synesthesia is a fascinating, fascinating neurological condition. And I think kids will be really interested in the whole idea. And again, paperback, short. You could easily give this one 221 pages to your young kids, fifth, sixth grade. They would absolutely love it. All right. Ooh, how about this one? Certain Slant of Light. This is my all-time favorite um, audiobook. I've actually listened to it several times. Um, and it's just one of the most romantic books I've ever listened to in my life. Um, it's about a girl who's a ghost, and she is basically attached to a human. So in this world, if you're a ghost, you're attached to a human. You can only go so far away from them. So you're basically kind of tied to them and wherever they are. And she is tied to an English teacher. And so she hangs out in the high school, and she can only go, as far as where the teacher is, and she kind of hangs out with the kids, and she doesn't really think there anyone else like her. But then one day another ghost shows up, and she becomes friends with him and eventually falls in love with him. And the reason they're able to stay so close to each other is because their two humans start a relationship, and so they're able to be together. So, and then this is where it gets weird, but it's actually really beautiful. So they are able to find humans, kids mostly, who are empty. And what that means is that these kids are either so depressed or so dissociated that they've left their bodies, and their bodies are open shells, and they're able to jump inside basically and take over their lives. And so that's what these two kids do. And in doing that, they explore this kid who has this big drug problem, someone else who's part of a cult, and they're able to be together. But of course, it's not going to last very long because these people might want their bodies back. It is unbelievably romantic. It's a gorgeously written book. It's one of those quiet books that people didn't pick up on a lot, but the audiobook is unbelievably amazing, absolutely mesmerizing. Whoever did the voice is just stunning, absolutely stunning. All right, Dairy Queen is one of my favorite series. Again, I have a lot of favorite series, but this one is stunning, and I think it stands the test of time. I'm not a big fan of the paperback covers. Um, you know, I like the old covers better, but what are you gonna do? This little half face thing. All right, this book is about DJ Schwank, which is like the best name ever. She lives, I think, in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Yes, and the audiobook is awesome because she speaks with a Wisconsin accent, which I just think is hysterical. And so she grew up on a dairy farm, and she's brothers, several brothers, and they're all football players, and her father's a football coach. And so she has always practiced with them, done rehab with them. She's one of the boys at home. She does all the same chores, everything. But then when she gets to high school, she realizes that her brothers are all, playing football and she doesn't get to. And so her father asks her to help out with um, uh, a football player who happens to be from their rival team, and she is going to help him basically improve his game. And she ends up falling for him, which is very embarrassing because they're rival teams. Anyway, so she decides that she can do one better. So she tries out for her own team and wants to play football. And of course, there's a big hullabaloo, and the town's not sure. But of course, Title IX, she got away with it, and her father was very supportive. So she becomes the first girl on the football team. This book is hysterically funny. She's a big goof. She does a lot of goofy stuff. She's a normal girl, but she plays football and she works on the dairy farm, and she has these awesome friends, and it's just a really stunning book. And this is one of those few series where the sequels, so the next one's called The Off Season, and that one is about her helping one of her brothers. He gets into a terrible accident, and she helps him through it as he's in the hospital and going through rehab. And then Front and Center is about her coming into her own and trying to decide between football and basketball and choosing a college and kind of standing on her own 2 feet. All three of these books are phenomenal on their own, but all together, really, really good. Love these books so much. All right, what else might you have missed? Um, you've probably heard of The Book Thief. Life as We Knew It, you might have missed. This is a 2006, so it's about 10 years old. Um, I remember handing this to a science teacher who was looking for a novel to use in her science class when the new Common Core requirements were coming out. She really wanted to connect science and literature, and this was the book I handed her. So this book is about basically the end of the world. It's one of those the first kind of catastrophe books when they were all the rage. And this book is about a meteor or an asteroid. It knocks the moon closer to Earth and it messes up the orbit. And there's a lot of science involved in it. The tides change, the weather changes, all sorts of crazy stuff happens, and it's very scientifically researched. But underneath it, you have a high school girl who is living, I think, in the Midwest somewhere, and she is getting ready to go to the prom. Oh, she lives in Pennsylvania. She's getting ready to go to the prom. She's going to ask this boy all this stuff, and then all of a sudden the moon goes crazy and her world turns upside down. This is, I think, a trilogy, but they're actually not trilogies. They're companion books. So The Dead and the Gone is the same story, but told in New York City, which is even a little more gruesome and definitely disturbing. This one, I think, is the sequel to Life as We Knew It. And I haven't read this one yet, but I'm sure it's also wonderful. This is a really short book. Actually, it's not as short as I thought, 352 pages. Really good for middle school or high school, especially kids who are interested in astronomy, interested in science, or just like these kind of catastrophe books as kids do. This is one of the first ones, and it's really well done. Highly, highly recommend it. All right, Hattie Big Sky. So let's see. Hattie Big Sky is one of my all-time favorite books, and she came out with a sequel not too long ago. Here it is here, Hattie Ever After, which is just as good. So this is one of those kick-ass girl books. I absolutely adore Hattie. I want her to be my best friend. She is just an amazing, amazing girl. She's 16. This takes place during World War II. And she is kind of an orphan. You know, she doesn't have a immediate family. She's been kind of shuttled back and forth, and then she inherits a homestead from her uncle, and so she goes by herself and goes to Montana and tries to set up the homestead. And of course, this was back in the day when there were rules about homesteading. So you had to set up the home and I think turn a profit in the first year. And you had to have, there were certain regulations for your farm that you had to meet in order to keep your homestead. And so she decides to try it all by herself at the age of 16. And so one of the interesting things about her is that she's really smart. She has friends who are fighting in the war, and there's a little bit of German kind of anti-German sentiment going on, and she is bonding with some of her neighbors who are actually quite far away because these homesteads are huge, but she has to have support somewhere. And she ultimately, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but, she does pretty well. There are a lot of obstacles. And she starts writing for the newspaper, and she calls it the Homestead, Hattie Homestead. Can't remember what she called. Um, Now it's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, she writes this column for the newspaper, and so this is how how's part of the story is told us through her articles. The second book picks up on that a little bit, and she actually ends up in New York City writing for a newspaper. Both are phenomenal books, definitely great, great, great role models. Um, let's see, we can pick out some authors that you might not have heard of before. How about Luna? Let's talk about Luna. So transgender books, and the topic of transgender kids is definitely a hot topic right now. This is one of the first books about a transgender kid, and it's awesome. It was a National Book Award finalist. Julianne Peters is absolutely amazing. She writes a lot of LGBT novels for high school kids, and this is one of her best, I have to say. This is about a kid named Reagan, and she has a brother named Liam, and Liam wants to be Luna. Liam feels like a girl and wants to be a girl and wants to dress like a girl and wants to live authentically. And this story is not told from Luna's perspective. This story is told from Reagan's perspective. And Reagan is really struggling with this. Reagan had a brother and now has a sister and doesn't really know what to do with this and is really kind of struggling. And I think this book is really unique because it allows the reader to struggle along with Reagan, asking the tough questions, really trying to understand, and trying to make sense of this. Watching someone you love suffer and then trying to make sense of your own world and trying to help them and then try to help yourself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book. It's, like I said, one of the first of its kind. It says, grades 9 and up, grades 8 to 12. I think it could go a little bit younger, especially back in 2006. People were a little reticent to talk about these kinds of topics with younger kids. I do think that middle school kids could totally handle this. It's a 300-page, 250, not a long, long book. Really, really good, though. This one definitely stands the test of time. I highly, highly recommend it. All right, another one that you might have missed. I promise I won't go on forever, but there are a lot of books out there. Um, Elsewhere is one of my all-time favorite books. This is one of those books where you hand to a kid, they love it, they come back to you and they say, I want a book just like this. And there is no other book just like this. This book is a tearjerker, I will warn you right now. This book is about the afterlife. So it's about a girl who is killed by a drunk driver. I think she's 12, maybe. Um, 15, I'm sorry. And so she goes to elsewhere. She gets into a boat, she crosses the river Styx, she goes to elsewhere. And in elsewhere, time moves backwards. So everyone gets younger and younger and younger. And so when she gets to elsewhere, she sees her grandparents and they're young. She sees her dog who had passed away. She sees her janitor. She sees all these people who've passed away and they're getting younger. Now, the tricky part about this is that once you get to be a baby again, you get put into a basket and pushed down the river to be reborn, which is fascinating, but also a little bit sad for the citizens of elsewhere. Now, the crux of this book is that you can pay money and look through these little binoculars, like the ones you see, at those little tourist stops, and you can watch your old life. The problem with that is that people become addicted to it and become obsessed with their old lives. And this main character really struggles with that. How do you let go of your old life? How do you let go of what's happening in the life that used to mean so much to you? So this is a really interesting book. It plays with a lot of mythology, a little bit of religion, but mostly it's Greek mythology, and a little bit of just fantasy. It's really, really interesting. It is definitely a tearjerker. I won't lie to you. It's about death. But I think that kids really, in my experience, really adore this book. Middle school, high school, it's one of the best books I've ever read. And you can even hand it to adults and they'll love it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Um, all right, My Most Excellent Year. This is a book, I only own about 20 books. Most of them are cookbooks. But I own this book. It's signed. Steve Kluger is awesome. He moved to New England recently, well, in the last 10 years, and he is hilarious. I wish he would write more YA books. Steve Kluger, if you're out there listening, please write more YA books. This book is hilarious, and I think there should be more hilarity in YA fiction, because kids suffer enough. It's hard enough to be a teenager, and um, a lot of these books are really dreary, but this book is hysterical. I was reading this book in the break room. It was in the basement of my old library. Um, and I was laughing so hard the janitor kept coming to check on me to make sure I was okay. And I was like, I'm fine, fine. This is really funny. Um, so this book is about these friends. They're three best friends, and they are in college, and they're being asked to write an essay of their most excellent year. And so they write about, I think it's their junior year in high school. And so this is a book that's told in emails, journal entries, narratives, all kinds of different methods. And it's told from the perspectives of these three kids, both their present voices and their past voices, plus their parents, and then a little boy named Augie who they befriend. And they befriend Augie. No, wait, Augie is one of the kids. I'm sorry, I'm terrible. I'm terrible with names. They meet a little boy whose name I'm not going to remember. And the little boy is deaf, and they meet him at a Little League game. And so they take him under their wing, and they learn sign language. They teach the entire community sign language, and he is obsessed with Mary Poppins, and he thinks Mary Poppins is just the best. And so they sneak him to New York City to meet Julie Andrews, which of course is, unbelievable, but it's funny and hilarious and awesome. And this little kid kind of transforms their lives. One of these kids is just coming out of the closet, and the parents are talking about, we all know he's gay, but does he? And these friends, like, they have crushes on each other, but they're not sure. And it's the sweetest story. It's really, really wonderful through and through. The kind of book you can read over and over again. I really highly recommend this one. Um, Definitely something you want on your shelves. All right, what else here is something you shouldn't? Oh, how about Winter Girls? I'm just going to talk about a few more of my 5-star. Winter Girls is one that got a lot of hype. when it first came out, and then it kind of fell off. This is one of the most devastating books I've ever read. It's about anorexia. Um, it's about depression. It's about self-harm. It's, I think, harder for adults to read than it is for teens. I was heartbroken when I read this book. I think it's one of the most brutal portrayals of an eating disorder ever. Um, Laurie Halsey Anderson doesn't pull any punches here. And so this is a story of these two best friends, and the way that they describe their bodies is really unflinching and kind of creepy. And they call themselves cages of bone, and that they're frozen inside, and it's just really horrible. But they're in it together, and they're really kind of supporting each other's um, eating disorder, which is, what keeps them together. But then ultimately one of them dies, and the one who's left behind, Cassie, is kind of suffering this PTSD trauma about it. And the way it's written, you just live it with her. And, there's this very awful point where you think she's going to die too. She doesn't. There's hope in the end. Don't worry. It's not that depressing, but this kind of struggle to recovery and this realization that I want to live is really powerful and palpable. Definitely a powerful book. Kids who want to read about these kinds of struggles, or who need to read about these struggles, this is one of the best ones ever written. And I have to say that everything that's been written since then hasn't come close. This one's is one of the best. Let me just scan through this and see if there's anything else in here that you really need to read. Um, how about Lost? This is another one that went under the radar. Um, this is a story about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which happens to be a part of history that I'm very fascinated by. Um, and this is based on a true story, or a smidge of a true story. And so it's about this girl who works in the factory, and she meets this mysterious woman who is well educated and a little like more dressed up than most of the people, and she's just not really sure. So they become friends. And in the meantime, Essie, the main character, is really struggling. They don't make very much money. She travels a long way to go to work. She makes hats on the side to make extra money. She makes these gorgeous hats. The cover doesn't really do it justice. But the interesting thing is it's of course there's a fire, and the friend, whose name I can't remember, Harriet, dies in the fire. And when you read the backstory, it turns out that this was based on a true story where a lot of people, unknown people, died in this fire. Like, there were people that they didn't even have records of. And there was this mysterious woman who no one claimed. And there was this kind of rumor that she was kind of a well-to-do girl who ran away from home because she was pregnant, which was a huge scandal back then. So I think the kids would really like this kind of mystery. Of course, with historical fiction, you know how it's going to end, but I think the little twisty mystery is really wonderful, and I think this is just a really well done book. Um, I think some of these books you probably have come across um, in your wanderings. These are some more new stuff. Um, let's see, is there anything else that I need to talk about? Um, I don't know. Let's see. Anything else? It's so hard. It's so hard to know. Um, how about we talk about the Mockingbirds really quick? This will be the last one. Um, this is another one. There was a sequel to this book. Ugh, the new cover is terrible. Um, and rape and rape culture has been part of the news a lot lately, and I think this book could be resurrected for this. This is another boarding school book, and it's very prestigious, Ivy League, track kids, but this is the story of a girl who's date raped. She's date raped by another student, and she doesn't know what to do. And she the administration makes it pretty clear they don't want to hear about it. And so she goes to this group called the Mockingbirds, and they're this underground organization that kind of allude to performing justice. And so what they've done is they have taken it into their own hands and are looking for justice for these crimes that the administration refuses to punish. And it's a very thought-provoking book. You know, they don't kill them or anything like that. It's more of a war of reputation and innuendo. But they definitely do some damage. And the whole idea, I think, of this book, you know, it's based on justice and the idea of To Kill a Mockingbird, and you know, you get what's coming to you, which you know doesn't always work out very well. And I think this is a great discussion book. I think if you have teens in your library who are thinking about these things, and you know who should be thinking about these things, the idea of date rape culture, who should be blamed, how administrations handle these kinds of issues. I think this is a really great conversation piece. You know, it's kind of like the fantasy of you know how you could get your revenge on someone who hurts you, but that doesn't always work out the way you want it to, and it's not always the best way to approach things. So I highly recommend this one. It's in paperback now, definitely high school, and I think, like I said, great discussion book. All right, you can keep going if you want to. My 5-star books are the ones that I really think are wonderful. You can see some of these are on the Canfield Fisher list. You know, some of them didn't make it. If you want to know more, definitely, you know, go through these, especially some of these older books. There are some real gems in here. So as always, let me know if you need anything. If you have comments or questions, I'll be around until June 29th. And happy reading, everybody.